They know.
Hold back up. Think about it. See,
Think about it. Why wouldn't they want?
wait.
No, you think about it.
Oh,
He said it earlier.
here's the problem.
He said it earlier.
You are not understanding European history. This is African. Keep in mind, we're talking about African people, okay? There's no Europeans in this story.
Okay.
Did you watch that video?
I did.
All
Did
right?
you watch the whole video?
But wait,
Yes.
see the part that we have not studied. When Rome takes over, you have the Inquisition. What did they do to people during the Inquisition?
Persecuted them.
Huh?
Persecuted them.
In some of the most vile ways, like sticking a spear up your anus,
Yes.
huh? Hanging you on a pole and lowering you down on a spear, and this spear is sticking up in the air, and they lower it and let it slide right up your anus, right through your body. I mean, these clowns had some barbaric stuff. Okay,
The crucifixion.
who was this?
We ain't gonna-
Who was it? It was the church, the Pope, and the boys. The concept of landlord, that's where it comes from. These boys owned the land. They had a tradition called first night. When you got married, the parishioner, the priest, or whoever was over your village, he got to sleep with the wife first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Now, this is where you got your so-called religion from, and you think this is going to save you? This is not what this was about.
Well, maybe I didn't word it correctly.
But I'm saying we got to go back and look at the history of these people. They went through what's called the Dark Ages. They didn't have books. They didn't take baths. None of that. That is not a part of the European experience. That's why when they got down to Mecca, them Arabs said, no, you take your nasty, stinky rat feel behind up out of here. Because we don't really know the history of Europe. See, they give you in history class, they give you European conquest, and they flower it up and make you think that these boys was all that in a bag of chips. Do you see that commercial they have where these guys are playing ping pong, and the guy comes in and they had the paddle? Okay,
If everything is, when we have the information.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You need to look at the commercial again. Forget about the ping pong. Look at the people, how filthy they were, huh? Because that's how they lived.
Yeah.
In Europe.
I did a paper, when I was, I guess they may retake this class, but this nun taught the class, and she was going through, well, Sappho invented the lyric poem, and I was like, well, that's not true. And I was so offended that the research paper that I did at the end of the course, it was basically everything that she taught that semester, and attempted to shoot it down. But I mean, there's an excerpt I found from a Time Life book. I'm like, this is your book, and it's saying that an example of a lyric poem from ancient Egypt by workers, just common people that were working. And I'm like, that's way.
But see, if these people down in Africa had these booming, glorious, extraordinary civilizations, and you come out of these caves and huts in Europe, okay, and you run into them, the first thing you's like, damn. Okay? First of which, the sister got back, okay, so oh my God. And then the wealth they had, the way they were living. I mean, keep in mind, the Moors, all these, you had streets that were paved with lights. These people don't even have streets. In the castles in Europe, do you know they don't have the sewage sanitary system you have today?
They still have those moats.
Thank you. Okay?
Yeah, they have moats.
When they talk about French whores and perfume, that was because they didn't bathe.
Right, to cover it up, yeah.
See, we need to be honest about what it is and start talking about it and tell our children this. They running around in this fantasy land thinking white people's all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
Follow them around for a day or two. Follow them into a bathroom. See how many of them wash their hands. And then go eat some French bread behind them.
That's why I don't shake hands.
Oh, is it?
And he knows that. I tell all white folks, I said, y'all look like the folks that dig in your nose, scratch your ass, and not wash your hand. I don't shake anybody's hand for that reason. And so.
But this is a real thing we had at the meeting. The lady from downtown, the curriculum lady, that's Susan, when we came out, we were at the African Center School. And they contacted us to help them develop a real curriculum. So I didn't know that this white woman from the district was coming. So when she gets there, I said, okay, now, as we begin to develop this history curriculum, where exactly do you start? Oh, we starting with Mesopotamia. Okay. Okay.
Convenient.
So I didn't, because I have a reputation of being crazy, so I'm like, no, but let's try this on. We know the origin of man was in Central Africa, and the cultural highway for information and people is called the Nile River. The White Nile and the Blue Nile, okay? So if you get on the Nile in the center of Africa, you're below the equator, so you have to have some melanin. Gloger's Law. It says all mammals in and around the equator secrete a substance called a melanin. It's Gloger's Law. This is not a theory, okay? And we're going downhill, but we're going north. I gotta go by, first of which, Ethiopia before I get to Egypt. The first thing, the principal, because they was having a discussion on, well, is Ethiopia older and is that? I said, Ethiopia is the mother of Egypt. That's a colony of Ethiopia. But if you follow the highway, you'll see you have no choice. But by the time you get to Egypt, you got to get to Egypt before you can get to Mesopotamia or Israel. Huh? So how did you all go past there, jump over this land, you put civilization and culture there, and then you came back over here and built some pyramids? Really? She never said another word all day, did she? She was taking notes. I had no more problems out of her. Because I didn't slam her. I just said, well, let's just follow the river.
Pointed to the facts.
And then we had a few books, so they were like, dang, these black people got our stuff. Oops. Huh? Okay, anyway. So, on 200 we have Horus as a child, and he has a Hinsu Pa heart name, the babe at the top of 12. And then down at the bottom of the page, he turns into a man.
30 years.
Okay.
As a man of 30 years, he was named the twice great.
Which is this one here. On the other side, you see. Now, keep in mind, when you see Haru and Horus, they're one and the same. Haru is where you get hero. So that's the thing that's confusing about studying Egyptian stuff is the names keep changing up, but they're really talking about the same thing all the time.
And it says Horus, the uniter of the south and north.
Voila. See these tablets,
Yeah.
which later on become the
Moses'
so-called
Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments,
Yeah.
but they also become the symbol for Ma'at.
Yeah, M-A-A-T, M-A-apostrophe-A-T.
Yes, which is supposed to be truth and justice. But initially, they are the symbol of Lower and Upper Egypt. Those are the symbols of the uniting of the two kingdoms. See, that's why you have to go back far enough. Everybody right now, with the exception of the people who have studied with me and you guys, everybody else out there talking about Egyptian stuff is talking about solar stuff only. So all they know is the Osiris drama. Well, that's the last 5,000 years of the story. That's only 4,000 or 5,000 years old. But you can't get there without finding where did this come from before you had this story in its entirety. Where's the origin of it? Which is what we're doing.
That with them being on that solar cult too is the reason why they believe Horus is a person versus constellation. They don't go back far enough to understand that.
Notice here is Tahuti. It says, great God, the Lord of heaven, King of the gods, the maker of eternity, and the creator of everlasting things. So now we're getting into this everlasting life concept.
Yeah,
But
they kind of talk about it over here.
okay, right. But now also look at the flail and the crook, because isn't that the staff that the Pope runs around with today?
Probably Moses there too.
Yep.
Even over here.
So you see it here and there. Okay.
You see they're all carrying these.
So that's what that, so when you see these guys walking around, Catholicism is nothing more than a complete plagiarization of the Egyptian mystery school. They just moved it over to Rome, which makes sense. If these people had this for as long as they're saying they know of, and it worked that well, why would I come up with something new? Why not just take what they have, erase their name, address, and phone number off of it, tell all of you that if you go to Egypt, it's pagan. Huh? Sold you a bill of goods so you won't even go look. Pagan means people of the soil, doesn't mean what you think anyway. But because we don't go investigate words, we think pagan means ungodly. So we're not going over to Egypt and do anything. And anybody that does, oh no, something's wrong with him. Okay? The same thing when people talk to you about astrology. Oh, look out. There's some of them strange. Oh, hey, the Bible done told you about them now. Okay, stay away from them. Huh? That's right. Oh, they got this game sold up so that you don't go looking, and they know, hey, if you don't go over here and look, they got a guy named James Henry Breasted today. This is going on today. James Henry Breasted is the father of Egyptology in America. He runs out of Chicago University. He literally has teams of people in Egypt today plastering over the hieroglyphs and repainting them. Because as Africans are starting to go over there and visit, you're starting to see, damn, all these people are black. Huh? Well, they got to slow that roll down. I mean, they're not crazy. So let's get our boys in there. They've chopped down a lot of the statues, the sculpture that had the 4 gods on it, which becomes the monument for South Dakota, the presidents. Mm-hmm. They literally moved that and put the Aswan Dam in there and flooded the land.
That's something to add. We're talking about. I was talking while read about the guy the Frenchman that deciphered the Philosopher's Stone to kind of get them kind of up on things. And he talked about the 4 different clays.
Petrie.
Yeah, and
Flanders Petrie.
Yeah, and he wrote a letter to his brother, and he was basically like, "Wow, look at what we're doing to these people now." Talking about in the late, I guess 18th century, and they come from such a greatness. He even wrote in a letter to his brother stating this, and basically he broke down. He's like, there's 4 different types of people. There was the Nubians, and then the Egyptians, which were basically one and the same.
Right.
And then you had the Arab people,
the Asians,
the Asians, yeah, the yellow people, and then the whites, and the whites were like the lowest class.
That's right.
And they were not to be. They were to be taken as such.
But if you look at what's going on in Europe during the 1700s, that would be very true. That's the era of the Vandals. Also on 201, here's another rendering of Tahuti, which is now this ibis, and it just keeps changing. But as long as you understand that this here's a point that is interesting, because in solar cult information out there, they refer to the all-seeing eye and the one on the dollar as being the eye or the sun god. But we see here, in fact, it was the eye of the moon first. It started out in lunar time, and the solar boys just continued it on. So it was the eye of light in the night and the eye of God.